I don't know if you guys know this, I speak Spanish a bit. Like as far as like a white boy can speak Spanish, I speak pretty well. All right. So sometimes if a girl like has a like Hispanic accent, I'll ask if she speaks Spanish, and she goes, yeah. I go like, para mí una palabra, no me digas nada, no te voy a entender. Soy hijo gringo estúpido, right? Something like that, right? So for any of you who don't speak Spanish, I basically said like, don't say anything to me in Spanish, I won't be able to understand, I'm a stupid white boy. But I said it in pretty fucking good Spanish for a white boy, okay? So what did I do there? I built value on the fact that I can speak Spanish, right? I built commonality, like she feels like I could be part of her world, I understand her family, that kind of stuff. I also built comfort from the fact that I can speak Spanish. And also beyond that, because usually this is within the first little bit of a conversation, I got past all the bullshit, awkward, get to know you, where there's nothing to talk about, and I injected a very good topic of conversation into it, right? I just made things roll along, right? And how did I know that? Because based on the accent, I was able to make an assumption about who she is, and I was able to go from there. Right? I also happen to know that most Americans speak really shitty Spanish, if at all. And so the fact that as a white boy American I can do that, it actually is like, it is a good DHV, okay? So that's a really good one. But there's all kinds of things beyond that, right? Tone of voice, if they're louder or quieter, that's kind of similar to the muted and loud close kind of thing. It indicates confidence, indicates how they communicate, indicates who they've been around, right? Are they usually like the popular kid? Or are they more like the unpopular kid, right? And just go a step further with that. If the girl indicates she's popular, now when you talk to her, you should indicate you're popular also, okay? Do you guys know how to do that, by the way? How to indicate in conversation you're popular? Well, go ahead.
I was gonna say you could just mimic the way she talks and stuff. Like if she talks a certain way and if that demonstrates popularity, you could just mimic that.
To an extent, you don't want to be following too much. You want to be trying to lead, but in general, yeah, if she's louder, be louder. If she's quieter, maybe like come down to the level a little bit. So one of the things that I like to do to indicate popularity is I'll just say little things that sort of indicate that I've had a positive response, that kind of stuff. So a lot of times, how many of you guys live in New York? Most of you probably, right? Okay. So a lot of people have this perception that New Yorkers are like mean or rude or like don't have the time of day for them and whatnot. To an extent that's true, to an extent it's maybe not true, right? Here's something I'll say, if anybody brings up that stereotype, a lot of times I'll say, you know what's funny, like everybody says that, but ever since I've been in New York, everybody's so nice to me, right? What does that indicate, right? It indicates I'm popular, people like me. But it's not like me being like, I am the shit, right? It's me, because I'm not talking about me, I'm not saying I'm the shit, I'm saying actually, I think New York people are nice based on my personal experience. But what does it imply? It implies I'm the shit, people like me, that sort of thing, all right? So I'll do a lot of those kind of things. Or maybe I'll be talking about someone, I'll be describing them, and I'll be like, yeah, they're kind of an asshole. But I appreciate that, because so many people just kiss my ass, and like, I don't know if they're genuine or not, but like, certain times if someone's an asshole to me, I may not like it per se, but at least I know they're real, right? But what kind of life story am I indicating by saying that? I'm indicating the life story of someone who's in charge, someone who's a boss, someone who people respond to, kiss their ass, that kind of stuff, right? But again, it's not me talking about myself, because if I talked about myself that way, it would be bragging, it would be try hard. But I'm talking about someone else, talking about the world that way, and it's just sort of like unconsciously through the filter of the cool popular kid who gets a good reception, that kind of thing, okay? So this is another thing that you can do. Another one that I absolutely love is word choice, right? When girls use certain words, they convey so much to you, right? If a girl ever says, this is one example, nauseated instead of nauseous, especially if they use it correctly, right? I don't know if like that's one that a lot of people don't know what that even means, but the point is like most people don't say that, okay? Most people would not use the word nauseated ever because they don't even know what the difference is. They've just grown up colloquially hearing nauseous. If they say that, what does that indicate? It indicates they're educated, right? It indicates probably they like words. It indicates they're kind of precise. They're probably like almost like a teacher's pet a lot of times, right? You can play into a lot of that. So a girl like that, right? Do you want to play like more like ghetto and thuggish, or do you want to play more educated and upper crust? Probably more educated yourself, right? And then the other thing is you can make a lot of reads on the girl based on that, right? You know that typically a girl who says nauseated instead of nauseous typically likes the approval of people in authority. She probably liked getting accolades from her teacher. She's probably going to respond very, very strongly if you're like, I liked you, but now I'm not so sure. She's like, no, I have to get my validation back. All my life, everybody thought I was the good kid. Like, no. If you say, like, you know what? Like, you seem like such a good girl, but I don't even buy your act. She's like, no, I'm really good. Because that's hitting on her identity, right? Her identity very likely is that type of person, right? So that's just one example of a word choice thing. But there's a lot of those, right? A word choice could indicate that they're into a particular sport or game. A word choice could indicate they do a particular profession, those kind of things. It's all just information for you to use, right? And every little bit of information you use is going to make things more efficient. Every bit of information you don't use is making your job harder, right? So pay attention to the woman. She's telling you who she is. She's telling you what she wants. She's telling you what she responds to emotionally. And if you go long enough she likes you, she'll tell you how to sleep with her. But you really do have to listen to what she's saying, what she's doing, that kind of stuff. Oh, what else do you guys think factor into the blueprint? Yeah?
If she has a friend with her?
If she has a friend with her?
Yeah.
How does that, that's interesting. What do you mean by that?
Well, I'm wondering whether or not you could choose to demonstrate more value or demonstrate more comfort if there's a friend around. She might be considering whether her friend's judging her and
cool.
Stuff like that.
Cool. So you're talking about something that's a little different topic than the blueprint I was talking about, but it's a good topic, so I'll address it, and it's related, which is there's the girl's blueprint in general, and there's her blueprint in the moment. Does that make sense? So for example, how many of you guys act differently when you're by yourself than when you're around your friends? Yeah? Everybody? Anyone who doesn't have their hand in the air, doesn't participate, or is a sociopath? Seriously. But basically, yeah, everybody does. Everybody acts differently around their friends. And actually, how many of you act differently around one group of friends than you act around a different group of friends? Does that happen too? Absolutely, okay? So that's like temporary blueprint, but it definitely factors in, right? So if the girls are around a group of friends that are all in like a very party mode, even if she's a girl that typically wants a lot of comfort and is shy and whatnot, because she's kind of in that energy, she will be a little more of that outgoing social girl, right? Also, when a girl's with her friends, she's going to be probably a little more concerned with judgment, so with comfort in terms of judgment than she would be if she's on her own, right? So obviously that's the thing you want to be responding to is how is this situation affecting her blueprint? How is the people she's around affecting her blueprint? So that's very, very much the case. Or for example, if you meet a girl at a nightclub versus meeting a girl in the park, right? How does that affect her blueprint, right? In the park, well, it's interesting. In the park, you may get a negative response because it's not a social environment, but if you do get like into a conversation, you'll probably get a very pleasant conversation at least, right? In a nightclub, you may get a conversation that is pleasant but doesn't really go anywhere. They keep you at a distance and just kind of push you away, right? Because what happens is in the nightclub, because the nightclub's a sex situation, they're judging you for sex much more readily than in the park. If they get into a conversation with you, it's more of like a friendly environment, so they're judging you as a potential friend more likely unless you've done something about it, right? So it's a different blueprint in terms of their response. However, nightclub's a social environment, park isn't necessarily a social environment if they weren't talking to you, so they may be more resistant to conversation at all in the park, right? So this all, again, just factors in. So key to reading the blueprint is you want to ask yourself, who is this girl, right? What are her values? And then try and put yourself in her shoes. That's the key thing. Try to put yourself in her shoes and see what you would want if you were her and had that value system. Try and relate that way. So that's pretty positive. All right, some other things that definitely affect blueprints. Education or education level affects blueprint tremendously. Money, like how much money they had as a kid, how much money their family had, affects blueprint absolutely tremendously. Skin color affects blueprint tremendously, right? People that grow up with one skin color have a different experience of the world than people that grow up with a different skin color. We all wish it wasn't true, but it's true. So you may as well cater to that, right? So all these different things that affect the way they've lived life affect their blueprint. Here's another one, attractiveness, right? A girl who's really, really hot will usually have a different blueprint a little bit than a girl who's just a little bit hot, right? Because Not because they're better or worse people, or not because they were born with a different like thing in their brain that went along with their hotness, but because they've been treated differently from day one, right? And similarly, the girl who's been hot all her life will have a different blueprint than the girl who became hot, in her 20s, right? So these are all things to play in. These are all things to factor. So whenever I'm talking with a girl, one of the biggest things on my mind is I'm trying to figure out the girl. I'm like compiling like a dossier on her. I'm compiling like, this is what she values. This is where she came from. This is what she did as a kid. This is what her goals are now. And when you know that kind of stuff, you can cater your presentation to, like your presentation of yourself to that. You can cater what type of plans you make with her to that. You can cater like kind of how you present yourself socially, how you present your job. You can cater how much or how little you tease her and what you tease her on, right? So a lot of this content, they call it like fluff conversation. A lot of the fluff conversation when I'm talking to girls is anything but fluff, right? It's very, very much in line with who they are, what they're seeing value in, and how I want to convey myself for that person. That's why a lot of times, especially when the women product comes out, you're gonna see a lot of like in-field footage of me where it seems like I'm having a very normal conversation. But the things I choose to talk about in that conversation and the way I choose to talk about them is actually basically hitting the switches to make the girl see me as the type of guy that she's gonna respond to very, very well. Make sense? Okay, so we talked a little bit about like what are the factors in blueprints. There are tons more, by the way. Like what I'm giving you guys is just like the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg, right? Like almost anything and everything a girl does is like part of blueprint. Like if I'm like, hey, what's up? How you doing?
Good, how are you doing?
Okay, cool. That's part of blueprint, right? The way that he shook my hand is part of blueprint, right? Took the hand like pretty like, not like squeezing, not killing my hand firmly, right? But like pretty like firm and enthusiastically, like tightened up, got business-like when he did it. Got a smile on it, like a certain type of smile on his face. It wasn't like a genuine smile. It wasn't like a I'm happy smile. It was like a I'm polite and ready for the business opportunity, you know what I mean? That kind of smile, right? So that says certain things about him. Also, his dress obviously says, I think, certain things. You come from work?
I did.
Yeah, so it says certain things about him, right? So this is a person who I think probably has a job in corporate America. That's my guess. Yes?
You're right.
Yeah, okay. Like that's tip of the iceberg, but that's one thing that I could glean from that, right? I'm also gonna guess you're not the CEO.
I'm not.
Okay, right? Sorry. It's the smile, but no. But I'm gonna guess you do something where you're relatively at least well respected and like, you have a good job that people would aspire to, that kind of stuff. Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool, right? So you can gain all that from just a split second, right? The way you're dressed, the way you shake a hand, that kind of stuff, right? Hey, how you doing, man? What's up?
How's it going?
Oh, look at that, all right. Cool. So you, more like the friendly bro-y kind of thing, right? So that doesn't mean you're not corporate, but it could mean that you're not feeling corporate in this moment, right? It's more of you're feeling more of a friendly vibe. So I'd be more casual, use more slang, that kind of stuff when talking to him, those kind of things. Also the look he gave, right? So I don't want to say like, you're like not hood, but like there's something like you're capable of like being a little hood. Like you're not Carlton Banks. You know what I mean? Like you're like you have a little of that edge to you, that kind of thing, right? So there's that, right? And it definitely was not like formal. It was like okay. So little things, every little thing, tone of voice, eye contact, dress, the way they respond to a compliment, every little thing is part of it. And the great thing is. When you start looking at girls this way, when you start to kind of like figure them out, you're gonna realize that it takes very little information because there's broad categories, right? There's very, very broad categories. And even though there's a billion factors that could contribute to blueprint, to get pretty close, you only need a little bit of information, right? And what'll happen is you start talking to a girl and she starts using certain words and expressing herself a certain way, and you're like, oh shit, I know that because that girl that I slept with 2 years ago did that exact same thing. And they're like, well, with her I interacted this way, you interact the same way, one thing leads to another, etc. Okay? So it's pretty straightforward. So now I'm gonna talk a little bit about specific blueprints of specific girls. And when I do these specific blueprints, I'm actually thinking of one particular girl I dated for each one of these, like a particular girl who I had a relationship with. But they are, I think, pretty general categories, and I think they're pretty like indicative categories of how you might adjust to differing blueprints, okay? So I'm gonna kind of throw these out to you guys. I want you to I'll give you like about 10 seconds or so to think about what you would do for these blueprints after I say it, and then I'm gonna tell you what I think the right adjustments are and that kind of stuff. So first one is, I call it the Harvard girl, okay? So the girl who went to the best school is attractive but doesn't like dress like a club girl or dress like, doesn't like flaunt physical appearance so much. Very well spoken, and has done the very typical path in life of, go to school, do a lot of extracurriculars, go to high school, go to the best college, do extracurriculars, that kind of stuff. So she's done the very, very typical path, but she's been excellent at all of it. She's always been excellent on that path. Okay, take a second. Think about that girl. All right. Now, how would you game a girl like this? How would you game a girl like this? Number one, you're going to want to probably let her talk more than you would let the normal girl talk, okay? Because she probably has a pretty high opinion of herself, wants to share a lot with you, okay? And because she is of a certain caliber, she's probably dealt with a lot of high caliber. But that said, most people that have been in a typical environment, like a lot of school environments, a lot of corporate environments, they're used to having a circle of people around them that they know well, right? So they're used to having a decent level of connection with people. Does that make sense? As opposed to someone a little bit like myself, if you're traveling from city to city to city all the time, you're gonna tend to have fewer sort of casual acquaintances and deep social circles where people know each other, all right? The more social circles someone's had in their life, the more comfort they're likely to need. Does that make sense? Because the more people they're used to having around them that know them well, they're gonna wanna select someone who also knows them well because that's a value they're used to, all right? So letting the girl open up, getting to know her, that sort of a thing is gonna be big. Next thing with this kind of girl, you absolutely must not make her feel like a slut, right? This is a girl who's used to fitting in and used to getting acceptance and accolade for fitting in, right? So you have to, with this girl, build, again, more comfort, and you're gonna need to make this girl feel special, and probably special for something other than her appearance, and probably special for something other than just accolade too, right? If she's a top scientist or top gymnast or something like that, you need to like her for something other than the obvious factor. You need to like her for something on personality, because that's gonna build a lot of comfort with her, okay? Next thing, cheat code for this type of a girl is that her whole life, she's gotten value from fitting in and doing the normal thing really, really well, right? So you should give her credit and praise for that. She's used to that to an extent. However, cheat code for this type of girl is undermine that a little bit, okay? Undermine that. You might say before she gets into some of her accolades and that kind of stuff, that you don't particularly judge people based on accolade. You judge them based on what they are or who they are. Right? For example, I might be a lot of people are doctors, but they're doctors because their parents told them to be doctors and they didn't really give it any thought. They were just the path they were on. They didn't really think for themselves. Whereas some people are doctors because it's truly their passion. So I don't really care what people do, but I care a lot why people do it and where they came from. And if someone was a janitor and they were just passionate about it and they did it for the right reason, in some ways I'd respect that more than a doctor who does it for the wrong reason. You know what I mean? Right? So you sort of undermine the accolade and you make them sort of justify a little bit, right? Because on the one hand, yes, you want to understand their world, and yes, you want to show that you at least can live in that world. But that said, a girl that's a little too comfortable because everyone's validating her all the time, she's gonna have no reason to chase you. A girl who's validated by everyone isn't gonna chase. But when you challenge the girl a little bit, that's when she's likely to chase. So that's a pretty good cheat code for that kind of girl as well. The other thing for that kind of girl is I would say patience, okay? If the girl likes you, she's gonna come around of her own accord. But if you try and push it, if you try and do something that's too far outside the social norm for her, then it may not work. So a girl like that, when I was living in Boston, I was simultaneously dating 3 girls that went to Harvard. And all 3 of them were not sex on the first date, which was very rare for me. All 3 of them, I slept with them on the second date, right? But the right blueprint for them was to,
Like that's bad. I didn't sleep on them on the first date.
It took me a while. But they just needed like the first, actually, interesting enough, one of them, on the first date, she barely even hugged me. Like she clearly liked me the whole date. Like clearly like everything was responding well, but I went to hug her at the end of the date and she was like very awkward, like she felt like weird about it and was like uncomfortable even hugging me. Like I was like, well, that surprised me. That was weird. But she's like, yeah, I don't know, whatever, right? And then she left, and I was like this close to never texting her again. Because I'm like, well, I thought it was a good date, but obviously it wasn't. But because it was the right thing to do out of due diligence, I texted her, and she's like, yeah, let's meet up again. I was like, okay. And then the second time I hung out with her, like, not just sex, but like pretty much straight to sex. Crazy enough, right? But in her mind, her blueprint was, I don't kiss guys on the first date, right? She had that in her head, because she was the girl that had like followed the rules, done the right thing, and done well at it her whole life, right? And so her rule was, I don't kiss guys on the first date. She didn't kiss me on the first date, but she slept with me on the second one, right? It's just playing the blueprint, right? And so that's what she needed. I was able to like feel it out as far as it goes. I mean, I was a little questioning it when the hug was that awkward, but fair enough, right? But that's an example of one type of a blueprint, all right? Cool, how many people were kind of on point on that blueprint, on, off a little bit? Some of you guys? Okay, cool. Cool. Next blueprint, let's do the Los Angeles actress model sugar baby. All right, so this girl is professionally hot. She has guys that basically have dated her that usually take care of her. She's somewhat famous. Maybe not like, she's not like an A-list celebrity usually, but she's at least somewhat famous. Like if you IMDb'd her, you'd find something. She spends a lot of time on her appearance. So think about that girl for a second. And I'll give you a sec, and then I'll tell you my thoughts on this particular one. All right. So let's look at this girl. This particular girl, she is told over and over and over and over and over again that she's hot, right? So my suggestion in terms of meeting gaming her would be, do not compliment her physical appearance, at least not in a direct or overt way. So you're hot, you have nice tits, I love your eyes, you're in such good shape, those kind of things out, okay? You can compliment like gestures and mannerisms in her appearance, that's fine. Like you have such a quirky smile, that's fine, right? Because that's not something you say to a girl who you're intimidated by her appearance. Does that make sense? This girl, the sugar baby LA model actress type, is used to running into a few different types of guys, okay? She will run into guys who just will worship her and throw themselves at her and just compliment and fawn over her. You want to avoid anything resembling that like the plague, especially early on. As soon as you're in that category, you are done. All right? The only way you're going to sleep with that girl from that category is if you pay her a shit ton of money. So that's a category you want to avoid. Next type of guy that she'll run into is she'll run into a lot of rich guys. And some of them she will like because of what they can do for her, right? Some of them like because they can pay her bills, they can pay her rent. Not all, but a lot of these girls have done something or another sexual for money at some point in their lives, right? Not all, but many. And so when they view you as rich, they will tend to put you in the category of useful. They'll tend to put you in the category of friend or like sponsor, that kind of a thing. But they'll tend to make it very, very, very hard for you to actually sleep with them unless you're getting into a very providery role, okay? Girls that I've dated under this sort of category, here are some random things that occurred in their life just to give you a perspective. Getting picked up for dates in helicopters. Not as a one-off, like by multiple different guys in their life pick them up for dates in helicopters. Okay? Yeah, that's legit, right? Or random, yeah, I'll pick you up in a lift. Random strangers who have never met them, sending them thousands, like up to like $5,000 at a time of gifts, like without even telling them who they are or trying to meet them, just showering them with gifts because they can. Okay? That's fucking gnarly, okay? So that's some of like the positive part of their life. Here's some of the negative part of their life. These type of girls, what happens to them is that at about age somewhere between like 16 and 20, they start to get a lot of attention from guys, and they start to get guys offering them the world, offering them vacations, offering them rent, offering them gifts in the thousands of dollars, et cetera, et cetera. And it becomes very easy for them to live that way. And they start living a very extravagant sort of high life lifestyle. And a lot of them, they realize that it's because of their appearance, and they start putting money into their appearance. They start, some of these girls are spending an average of over $10,000 a month on their appearance. I know, it's crazy, right? Right? That includes the occasional plastic surgery, so that definitely slants it upwards, but that's a lot of money, okay? And what's happening is every passing year, these girls have to do more and more to maintain the same appearance. It's costing them more and more and more, and they're slipping, and the offers they're getting from men are slightly less and less and less, right? And the longer they go, the more that's the case. And the longer they go, the more they realize that if it ever did slip, if guys stopped giving them gifts, their standard of living would suddenly plummet because they never developed any skills to make money on their own, okay? So on one hand, they're extraordinarily confident of their appearance.